Hello, hello, everyone. Sarah here from Mappy Hour. Really excited for tonight's live. We are talking with Brian from Fuzzy Stitchworks all about bike packing bags, and this super cool custom bag set that he made for Mappy Hour. Before I dive into that, I just wanted to quickly, if you're new to Mappy Hour, let you know that we're a community of urban dwelling outdoor enthusiasts. We do fun online stuff like this talk, as well as have in-person events in cities across the country. So if you're in a city and you want some new friends, check out mappyhour.org and sign up. And of course, shout out to our sponsor, Sierra Nevada. They supported this entire maker series that we did, where we got to highlight and talk to one independent maker every month of this year and do a really cool giveaway, which we'll talk about later. So thank you to them for supporting us and our crazy ideas and allowing us to be creative and have fun. So with that, I am really excited to introduce Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hi,
Hey.
thanks for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, welcome to Mappy Hour Live. I am super excited to chat with you. Our chapter leader in Cleveland, Tasman, told me about you like a year ago, and I had reached out in April, and I was worried because you had on your website, like, I don't do custom orders because I'm so busy. And I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to get him? So, just to get started, can you give us an overview of who you are and what Fuzzy Stitchworks is all about?
Sure. So my name is Brian Kleuber. I live kind of in the west side suburbs of Cleveland. Uh, I do Fuzzy Stitchworks kind of part time. It's really a hobby that kind of grew organically. That got a little, it kind of has a mind of its own sometimes. But I do still have a day job, and balancing that with family and everything. But in short, it started out with making some bags for myself, and then grew from there. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. But I make all of the bike bags and everything here in my basement, by hand. So we make I say we, it's me. I make accessory bags and custom frame bags and basically whatever people ask me to make. Mostly for bike packing and gravel racing, that kind of thing. Also dabble a little bit in like chalk bags for climbing and that kind of stuff. So
Cool. So I want to kind of back us up a little bit because bikepacking is a niche and ever growing sport. And so I'm wondering how you first found it and what drew you to bikepacking.
sure. Yeah, it's definitely certainly been something that's kind of on the rise. The interesting thing is it's always kind of been a thing. It just has gone by different names. So the last 10 years or so, it's gone by bike packing. Before that, it was touring, and there's all kinds of stuff. But I got into it. Really, my first tour ever. So when I turned 30 back in 2018, and kind of had that moment where it's like, the years start going by really fast as you get older, and I was like, I really want to do a bike trip down the Pacific coast. And I had never done an overnight anything on a bike before. And I was just kind of decided that like when I turn 30, that's going to be the year I do it, because you can keep pushing it off, and who knows what happens in the future and if you can do it or not. So I just sort of did it, and that was kind of my jumping off point for bike packing. So
Had you been following, like, how did you know about bike packing? Or you were just like, that sounds like a cool bike ride. How do I make this happen? And then learn that you could just carry your stuff and camp?
yeah, I mean, so I have been riding a lot since college. Since like my last year of college is when I seriously picked up a bike and started riding. So I kind of came through it from from racing and commuting. So I would commute to work about 15 miles each way, and then started doing like mountain bike racing and cyclocross racing, and kind of got into the cycling scene, like more involved with cycling scene that way. And then just, pretty soon, like lots of my friends were all these other bike people, and, they tend to dabble in all types of riding. And one of those types was bike packing, and sort of got the seed from that. And I had done backpacking back in high school. I grew up doing, Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts and all that kind of stuff. So I had done a number of backpacking trips kind of when I was younger, and I hadn't done it in a while, but it sort of was like that perfect, like, well, I know I like camping and I like backpacking and I like bikes. So like, might as well do both at the same time.
Right. Limited vacation time, do all the sports.
Right. Yeah. Just, combine it all.
Yeah. So how was the trip? How'd it go?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, so I flew out to Vancouver, packed my bike in a box and checked it on the flight. Flew to Vancouver, did 6 days kind of around BC, and then took the ferry down to Port Angeles in Washington. And then basically I followed the Adventure Cycling Association has like published routes kind of across the U.S. and one of them is a Pacific Coast Highway route. So I mostly followed that from there all the way down to the Mexico border.
Awesome.
It was great. Yeah, I camped all but 2 nights. I camped, which they make it really easy. It's like every 15 to 20 miles along that route, there's like a state park that has like a hiker biker campground. So you don't have to like reserve spots. You just show up, and it's like, depending on what state you're in, depends. Like in Oregon, I think they were $5 a night, and you just show up, and they'll never turn you away. Because they have these hiker biker sites, and basically anyone who shows up on foot or on a bike, you camp in like this communal area, which is great because you meet people who are doing the same thing that you're doing, kind of along the way, and you tend to see them more than once because generally speaking, you'll end up at the same campground somewhere down the road again. So yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, it was I don't know, you could say life changing. It sounds a little cheesy, but it's like. It's definitely one of those things where, like, it's 4 years later and I think about it constantly, and just kind of changes your perspective on things. Going back to work after that, I took 6 weeks off work to do it. Going back was hard, especially to like the normal 9 to 5. Yeah, I was like, I was, the last 6 weeks I've just been riding my bike all day, every day, and seeing amazing coastlines and that kind of stuff. And now I'm back in a cubicle.
Yeah, it is. This is like a whole different conversation, but I feel like kind of these longer trips when your concern is like your physical body, right? Like I need to feed, shelter, and bike all day, and that's what I'm super focused on, and it changes how you think about your everyday.
Yeah, everything else seems so like just extra. It's like when your things you have to do during the day are so just the basic necessities. That's all you have to worry about. And it's like, I have to get to this area by a certain, like by the end of the day, basically. And then the only other thing I have to worry about is food and setting up my tent. And it's like, that's a pretty simple way of living in it. There's definitely like, you kind of get sucked into it a little bit.
Yeah, if only that could be a full-time
right
opportunity. Okay, so let's talk about the gear for this ride, because that is obviously important here. How did you figure out what gear you needed and how to attach it to your bike?
So I definitely overpacked. I ran four panniers front and back, so I had a front rack and a rear rack. And I didn't need. If I did it again or had more experience, I would never have brought that much room because you tend to just fill whatever space you have. But then that was also kind of what started Fuzzy Stitchworks. Was for that trip, I wanted a half frame bag to run just stuff, keep things that are like easily accessible. I didn't want to have to pull over and like dig into my panniers anytime I needed something. So I actually have the original frame bag here. So this is kind of the bag that started Fuzzy Stitchworks. So this is my first frame bag. I made it for that trip. And I wanted one, and getting a custom bag made is expensive. It's not cheap, and I understand why, especially now that I make them myself. But I was like, I could probably try and make something. And my mom had done a lot of sewing when I was growing up, so I was always kind of around it. I never really tried it before, but so I borrowed her machine and just sort of, drew a cardboard cutout of my bike frame and after staring at pictures a bunch of times of ones online, kind of figured it out, and it's still going. I use it to this day on like long gravel races and like 1-day races and stuff like that. I usually keep a 3-liter water bladder in there, and that's how I drink my water on long races. So I ran that, and then I had just kind of your standard feed bags, which helped me carry like sunglasses, just things that are like easily accessible, which is one of the things that we did for the custom set for Mappy Hour, as a feed bag that's kind of a much more refined design than my original one, but it's same function, and that just keeps super easy to get into. It's one-handed, open and close. So sunglasses, sunscreen, phone, wallet, all that kind of stuff was just like right there at your handlebars and easy to get in and out of. So, and then I know one thing that I always thought a lot about when I was getting ready for that is like, well, how do you keep your phone charged or your GPS and that kind of stuff? And there's a million ways to do it. What I ended up doing was I run a what's called a dynamo hub in my front wheel. So I built a wheel set specifically for this trip that I now use all the time. So the dynamo is a generator. So as the wheel spins, it generates electricity. There's a bunch of magnets and stuff in there. And that magnet, the dynamo hub then runs up. It powers my headlight and my tail light, so I don't have to worry about those losing battery or anything. As long as my wheel is spinning, those are going to be on. And then it also powers like a USB port, and then I can either plug directly into that for my phone, or what I usually ended up doing was carrying like an extra battery, like a battery cache kind of thing. And then I would charge the battery cache, and then I could charge my phone and my GPS off of that, like in my tent or while I was riding. So if you're able to, that's the way to go.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm not like super deep into the bike packing world. Like I'm a pretty newbie bike packer, and I have not heard of this before. That's super smart, and that's really cool that you built it yourself.
It's just nice so that like for like a weekend, you probably don't need to do that. For 6 weeks, it's like it just keeps you from having to stop and sit at a Starbucks for like 3 hours while your stuff charges.
Yeah. And is it relatively light in terms of?
Yeah, for the most. I mean, the hub's it's not bad. It's not like a ultra lightweight like racing hub or anything, but neither is a touring bike. So it certainly wasn't the primary thing that was weighing that bike down.
Right, it was the 4 panniers and 2 racks. Okay, so you made a bike bag your first shot. You were just like, I'm just going to do this. You borrowed a sewing machine and made a bag. How did you get to where you are now, where like random people on the internet are reaching out and asking you for bags? Did you know you wanted to make it into a business after you made that first bag?
No, it didn't even cross my mind. So kind of how it sort of evolved was, so I made the frame bag and a couple feed bags for that trip, and had I was excited about it, so I posted it to our the team chat for the cycling team that I'm on, which is Joy Machines Racing, and those guys were like, "Oh, that's cool! Like, could you make me one, or like I could feed bag or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, so my thought was, well, I'll sell them for like, I think I sold them for $5 or $10 a piece or something like that, because I just wanted to like cover the cost of the materials that I had bought. So I was like, if I can just come out of this break even, that would be awesome. And I knew those guys were mostly just asking because they were being nice. So I was like, yeah, I'll make you some. So I made a bunch of feed bags for, the team guys. And then Alex, who's the owner for our shop, Joy Machines Bike Shop in Cleveland, took a look at a couple of them, and he was like, these are actually pretty good. If you're interested, like I'd sell these at the shop. And that's kind of what kind of started the whole evolution of it. So pretty quickly after that, I was like, well, if I'm going to start doing that, then I need to, refine this design. So I made it easier to sew and a better overall product. And part of that was like my sewing skills were limited. So it was like, well, how can I make this easier for me so it looks better and is also faster and easier to make? So I did the first design iteration, and started selling. It was basically just feed bags, and then started making custom frame bags for friends, and then pretty quickly after that, it was just like I started posting them on. I made a Fuzzy Stitchworks Instagram page after like I don't know 5 frame bags, I think it was, and started posting stuff, and then it just sort of grew from there to the point where I had to basically stop taking orders. So about August of last year, it stopped because it was just I couldn't keep track of the orders anymore. It was just like too long of a wait list, and I haven't turned it back on yet. I still have ones I got to finish. Which I mean, and part of that is just like circumstances change. Like when I had a kid in the middle of that, so it quickly became a what do you want to pursue more? Do you want to comfortably provide for your family and like have benefits and that kind of stuff, and do this kind of on the side, or take the leap and do Fuzzy Stitchworks, full time, and the math didn't quite work out with a newborn in the middle of COVID. So
it's very hard to start a business.
I mean, I am amazed by the people that do it. It's scary, it's like that's not an easy decision to make.
So right now you have a full-time job, you have a kid, and also you're doing Fuzzy Stitchworks, all those things together.
Yep. Yeah. Right. So I go work my normal 9 to 5, which usually is more like 9 to 6. Come home. We do dinner and bath time and bedtime and all that stuff. My son's 2 now, and then once he goes to bed, then it's get some things done around the house, hang out with my wife, hang out with my dog. And then when she goes to bed at like 9:30, then I come downstairs and I start sewing for probably, 2.5, 3 hours, depending on, how much pressure I'm feeling or how awake I am.
Right. So, wow. Do you listen to anything while you're sewing?
Usually podcasts or music. I tend to go in phases. So I'll do like podcasts for like 3 months or 4 months at a time and just like binge a bunch of them, and then go back to music, and then I'll find some other podcast and kind of binge that.
Get into it.
And I went through a period where I would like have like a TV show up on my phone on the table while I was doing it, but I found I got too distracted with that and I like wasn't getting anything done.
Right. You're like, I guess I need to look at what I'm making.
I was like, okay, so I'm down here for 3 hours and I did like 45 minutes worth of actual work.
Right. This is why it's not taking any custom orders.
Yeah.
So, are we in your studio right now?
Yeah. This is and part of my beautiful basement here, where we had to like take down part of the wall. So fabric rolls behind me. There's also a bunch of bins kind of out of screen here of various fabrics, small quantities of fabrics that I use. There's some of the finished goods here. So this is the Mappy Hour stuff here, which we can take a look at here in a second. Yeah. And I've got a couple of bags that are actually on the website right now, which is unusual. Normally I don't have anything ready to make that's actually on the site. It's usually all made to order. But I popped a couple I don't know, a few months ago, actually. They've kind of been out there. And then kind of on the other side of the table that I'm sitting at are my machines. So I've got four sewing machines in here. One of them is kind of the old, actually the original machine that I used to sew the first bag.
You never gave it back to your mom.
You never gave it back to her. And she's fine. She has more than enough sewing machines to go around. I've offered it to her. She told me to keep it. But I still use it. That's the one I use to sew. I don't put it through like the hard work it used to do, but it has a couple of functions. So I use it for like labels, easy stuff like sewing on the labels, sewing on the patches for like the Mappy Hour bags. I use that. And it has kind of a removable table, like flat top table. So for the feed bags, it lets me get around when I'm doing kind of the final stitching kind of on the top of the bag, since that's kind of it'd be a little tight doing that on a flat top. So it gets into that a little easier. And then I've got, I don't know if anybody cares, but
no, someone on the YouTube who's watching on YouTube actually asked what kind of sewing machine is it industrial. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So I have, my main one is a Juki DNU 1541. It's a walking foot. It's kind of the sort of industry standard workhorse walking foot machine. My first industrial machine was a Singer 251.6, which is just kind of it's a dinosaur of a machine. I mean, I got it for like $100 on Craigslist when I realized my mom's old machine probably wasn't going to last very long if I kept trying to sew all this heavy duty materials on it. And it's just a straight stitch, kind of needle or drop feed, and it doesn't even have like a reverse button. It does one thing, and that is so straight. And I used that for years. I only got that Juki like less than a year ago. So anytime I need to like go backwards to like to do a bar tack or a back tack or anything like that, anytime you're starting something, I would have to either flip my whole workpiece around and go back over the stitches I already did, or like manually back up the stitches for that. So everything took forever on that thing. So that one has been relegated to just like very specific, like top stitching basically is all I use that for. And then I have a bar tack machine that is also ancient that I got off Craigslist. That was maybe not my best purchase. It is very limited in what it can do, and is kind of a scary machine. But yeah, so that's a FAF. I don't even know I'm looking at it right now. I don't know what the model of it is, but it's an old FAF bar tack machine.
Cool. I know nothing about sewing, so hopefully Glenn and everyone who does that was meaningful to you. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I was going to ask a little bit more about the fabric. Obviously,
Sure.
like it's bikepacking, it's for the outdoors. Where do you get your fabrics from? And also, your whole thing is it's fun and funky. So how do you find fabrics that aren't boring?
Sure.
And how do you choose them?
Yeah, so there's a couple of sites. I don't do enough volume typically to kind of order wholesale, though I'm starting to do that a little bit more now. Normally, I'm buying like a yard or two off of, there's a couple websites out there, like rockywoods.com is one that has a lot of like X-Pack and Cordura and all that kind of stuff that you would normally make outdoor bags out of. So I've used them a lot. I've gotten to the point now where I'm ordering rolls of fabric like directly from Dimension Polyant, which is who makes X-Pack fabrics, which is kind of it's the fabric, it kind of rolls a bit behind it, but it has like the actual X that you can see in the fabric. It's pretty common in a lot of like outdoor like backpacks and that kind of stuff. And that's been awesome because that stuff's really expensive if you order it at retail, and if you order it direct, you have to order more of it, but the pricing is way, way better. But then another one that is really helpful for like kind of your normal DIY maker community is ripstopbytheroll.com, and pricing is higher, but they have like no minimums. You can order like a half yard or a yard at a time, and it's if you just want to like dip your toe in, that's the way to do it. And the nice thing that they have from a kind of a get into like some more exciting fabrics and stuff like that is that they'll print anything on these like technical fabrics. So you can custom design your own graphics and have it printed on the fabric for you. And there's a couple websites now that I think that do it, but they were kind of the first one that did it for like the DIY community. So I've dabbled with that quite a bit and doing like small batches of fabrics to kind of create fabrics that you can't buy anywhere else. You can buy a lot of like kind of the funkier stuff if you look for it. But this is nice because you can design your own, and then nobody else has that fabric.
Right. Yeah. Which is perfect if you're doing custom work anyway.
Yeah. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, some of my customers are like super talented from a design standpoint, and I am not. As I get older, I recognize that technology, I'm not as good at it as I thought I was. But they'll design their own stuff, or I'll partner with like artists and that kind of thing. and we share the profits of it. And then they know what they're doing. They can create a pretty cool fabric, and I can make something fun without having to struggle through
graphic designer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, speaking of custom stuff, you want to talk about the Mappy Hour bag set? And I'll do a little plug right now. You guys, tonight is the last night. You have to enter this giveaway by tomorrow at midnight. It's on our Instagram at Mappy_hour. It's really easy. You just comment on the Instagram post. You'll see it. And we're giving away this whole bag set. So if you haven't entered yet, now is the time to do it. End of plug. All right. So yeah. So would love to see those, and then also just hear how you came up with the design.
Sure. So yeah, it's a set of 4 bags. So you've got kind of what I consider a universal frame bag. It's pretty darn near universal. It'll fit almost any road bike or gravel bike without any issues. And I made the straps kind of extra long to go around any kind of thicker hydroformed aluminum or carbon frames or anything like that. So it should fit just about any bike. The top it's a lace-up design, so again, you don't have to worry about Velcro fitting around bigger frames. All my bikes are steel, so my tubing on my bike is really small, so this should allow it to fit bikes that are aluminum that have typically bigger sizing tubes and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so frame bag, a handlebar bag. So this guy attaches just straight to your handlebars with some Velcro. And it's got some foam spacers that kind of space it off of your handlebars, so it doesn't get in the way of like your cables or your brake housing or anything like that. And there's plastic on the inside of this that keeps its shape for you, and then a bungee that will attach to just kind of keep it tucked in so it's not flopping around when you're hitting bumps and stuff. A feed bag. So this is the actual 4th version, I think, of this type of bag that I've done. It's actually, I guess, technically the first one of version 4. Yeah, so you guys are going to be my guinea pig.
First edition over here.
Yeah, so this is the first time I actually lined it with a 1/8" closed cell foam. So it has a lot more structure than, like, this is the last version here, which works great. And I've used this personally for years, and it's awesome. But there's no structure there. It just kind of hangs out. This one it's padded, it's insulated. So if you put like a beer in there, it'll stay cold or colder. It also has a grommet in there. So any condensation leaks out or any rain that gets in the top will leak out. And I changed the way that it attaches. So this part's the same. So you have one strap that'll go around your handlebars and one that'll go around your stem. And that kind of allows it to kind of tuck in there nicely. So it's, right at your fingertips. But then there's always a 3rd attachment point just to keep it from flopping around too much. And on the old version, I had it was a fixed strap. So this would kind of go around the bottom of the top of your fork, and it just clips in at the bottom here. And it worked well, but I found that people weren't using it that way. That was the way I designed it, and it turned out that most people were kind of looping it around their head tube on their frame. And then when they did that, it was way too long of a strap. It didn't need to be that long. So I switched it up now to it's just a daisy chain, and then I'll include a piece of a bungee cord there so that you can kind of attach it. Or if you don't want to run it, you don't have to. It just, it's up to you. So a little bit more user-friendly, I think, in terms of the way people actually use it.
We'll make sure whoever wins this gets you some feedback on the new design.
Yeah. I'm excited. It was kind of things I'd been bouncing around in my head, and I finally was like, this is the time I'm going to do it. So I'm glad to do it. So thanks for that. And then a top tube bag. This guy sits kind of right on the top of your frame. And I find it super, super handy. It's on the big side for a top tube bag, but it's specifically designed to fit a smartphone. So you can just kind of drop that in there, and it'll be right there, right kind of right between your knees, sort of. On the top tube there, and it's padded where it meets the frame. So when you're bouncing around, it's not going to mess up whatever's in your bag, and it won't hurt your frame. It's got a slightly different design than kind of most top tube bags. So it is a solid piece of plastic that runs around the inside from end to end, and the fact that it's one piece and not two pieces like most, I think keeps it a little more stable. It doesn't like flop back and forth the way a lot of these do, which is my biggest pet peeve. So it took me a long time to come up with this, because my biggest thing when I did that Pacific Coast ride was I had kind of an off-the-shelf top tube bag, and it would just kind of like it wasn't tight enough, and just the design of the bag, it flopped around a lot back to back, and when those things flop, it just your knees run into it. Which drove me crazy.
Yeah, especially it's like 5 weeks of something annoying like that.
Yeah, and it's just like a small thing. You're like, this is just super annoying, constantly fiddling with it. So, and then I use a bungee cord at the top. Again, I use a lot of bungee cord to attach to the front of like your steerer tube. And between that, a cinch strap here in the back. This is rubberized fabric. And then the plastic stiffer on the inside. Between all of those things, it's pretty rock solid. So I did a lot of testing on that when I was on my own bike, through a lot of like 100-mile gravel races and stuff like that. And it held pretty strong. So pretty confident that it'll work for most people.
Yeah. Super cool. Thanks for like walking us through each piece. It's awesome to get like the details of it and how you thought about the design and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I kind of get sucked into that kind of thing. So
do you have a background?
Otherwise I'm doing it anyway. So
yeah. How did you are you an engineer? Are you an engineer or designer? Or is this just
No, I'm a finance manager.
Okay.
Awesome. Totally different. So I this is definitely scratching like a different side of my personality than my day job for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, that didn't go over, but so the fabric itself, this is kind of a newer fabric that a lot of kind of the smaller makers in the bike community have really embraced lately. It's called EcoPack, and it's a laminate just like X-Pack, but it's made by Challenge Sailcloth, and it's made out of like 100% post-consumer. I think it's polyester, or I don't remember exactly, but it's all recycled plastic, which is definitely a step forward. It's not like the end goal, I don't think, but it's a heck of a lot better than using virgin plastic for all of the fabrics that we're using in this industry. So really happy with it. It works great. It's super, super waterproof. The bags themselves are not, because when I sew it, I poke a whole bunch of holes in it with the needle. So it will leak, and it'll get, water will get in, but it won't get in through the fabric itself. It'll go in through all the needle holes. So you could, in theory, seam seal a lot of this if you were worried about it. In practice, it works pretty good unless you're out like all day long in pouring rain. And then I use some scrap. I don't think you see that very well, but this is like a tie-dye nylon. It's just scrap stuff that I had laying around that I thought was kind of fun. I don't particularly love all black bags. I think they're boring, but a lot of people like them, and they go with everything. So I figure if it's a giveaway for some person I don't know, I'm going to go with something a little bit more mainstream, and then just add kind of the bits of flair, my 37 bits of flair throughout. So, and then I used a rainbow thread for the top stitching, just as kind of an additional bit of fun there. So it's not all black. But.
Yeah. You pull people in. It's all black, and then they look at it and they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
actually, this is kind of fun." Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess to wrap it up, do you have any advice for someone else who wants to maybe become a maker or explore, doing a side hustle, passion project, as part of their life, but not as, their full-time job?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just, you got to be honest with yourself in terms of what you're willing to do. And it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to grow this until I can quit my job, like until it like is making me enough money that I can quit my job. And it's like, some people do it and it's amazing. Some people can't. I am in that one. I tried, and it was like, it got to the point where it was like the balance is really hard. So you kind of have to constantly be thinking about where the trade-offs are worth it to you. So it got to the point for me where it was like, okay, well, I could keep focusing on this and grow it and probably make that shift. But it would mean, spending a lot less time. It was already spending less time with my family and my wife and everything and friends and less time to go out and actually ride. And it's like, at what point is it, okay, maybe I need to shift back a little bit and kind of reassess what I want to prioritize. So, and it's a constant juggling act. But I would say for anybody who wants to do it, I think it's been super fulfilling, seeing like, especially the designs that are a little bit more unique that kind of come out of you thinking about it forever and ever and ever. And when you actually, put it to fabric and turn it into a 3D object that then you're using on your own bike or on somebody else's bike, and you kind of see that come to life, it's extremely fulfilling. So anybody who wants to do it, I mean, I'd say that it's, just do it. It might not be very good the first time. Like, I wouldn't sell that first frame bag to anybody. It's worked out for me, but if I didn't have, a group of cyclists really that were good friends of mine who were, happy to support the terrible bags I was making at the beginning, I wouldn't be here. So, but at the same time, it's like, so you're not going to be good the first time for the most part. But it's going to get better every time. And every time I make a bag, it's better than the last one. Like, these ones are real. The ones that I made for Mappy Hour, I'm super happy with them. I think they came out great. So yeah, it's just a learning process. And I think that it's one of those things that if you want to do it, you can do it. It might not be the right way to do it, but you'll learn from it. And then you'll do it slightly different the next time, and you'll learn from that. And and then you'll, by the end, you'll have a bag that you can use. So
yeah. This is like just generally good life advice, right?
Yeah.
You might suck at first, but it's okay. Just keep going. You'll figure it out.
Nobody was good the first time around, right?
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. I feel like that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for making these bags, sharing your journey with us, and great
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out, and thanks for your patience.
No, it was great. I felt very lucky to get on the list. So I was very psyched on that. All right, cool. Well, until next time, and reminder to everyone, go on our Instagram and enter that giveaway because these bags are super awesome.
All right.
And thank you. Good night.
See ya.